Being a Rotarian is now even more rewarding. Rotary Global Rewards, our member benefit program, offers discounts you can use every day and helps Rotarians do what they do best: give back. The good you do comes back to you. Rotary Global Rewards. Find out more at rotary.org/myrotary.
I tell you, it's great to be up here and hear all the chatter. A lot of people having a lot of fun together. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa today, where a bunch of good people are doing great things. We have so many exciting things for you today, and to see so many new faces over there, it's really great. A lot of round badges. Appreciate it. And so let's get started. Leading our invocation is Muzon Biggs. Song and Pledge is Jerry Dillon, and visitors is Jerry Mortor.
Last Wednesday, we had a prayer from George Washington, and I remembered as I listened to that beautiful prayer that I had a prayer somewhere in my files at the farewell address of President Eisenhower. My father fought under Eisenhower and the Allied forces in Germany, so he's always sort of a special person to us. Born in Denison, Texas, graduate of West Point in 1915, just before we got into the war, was a part of that war as an officer, and then, of course, President Roosevelt chose him to be the Supreme Allied Commander. Then he was president of Columbia University and was asked to run for president on the platform of getting us out of Korea and ending that war there. So this was a prayer that he included in his farewell address. Let's pray. God of all times and all peoples, we pray that peoples of all faiths, all races, all nations may have their great human needs satisfied, that those now denied opportunity shall come to enjoy it to the full, that all who yearn for freedom may experience its spiritual blessings, that those who have freedom will understand its heavy responsibilities, that all who are insensitive to the needs of others will learn charity, that the scourges of poverty, disease, and ignorance will be made to disappear from the earth, and that in the goodness of time, all peoples will come to live together in a peace guaranteed by the binding force of mutual respect and love. Amen.
Can you imagine what's happening in Rotary Club in Dallas this week and last week? Service above self in the four-way test. So it's with deep gratitude that we have police officers and the Sheriff's Department to provide incredible protection for us. So we have a lot to be thankful for, a lot of work to do in healing since 95 years ago that we acknowledged recently of what happened here in Tulsa. The focus was on Tulsa throughout the United States. And now the focus is on Dallas, New Orleans, Minnesota. So today, let's sing a prayer requesting that God would bless our country. God bless America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. It's my honor to introduce our visitors and visiting Rotarians today. As is our custom, when I announce your name, the visitor and the host will stand briefly, and then you can sit right back down so we can see who you are. Catherine DeCamp has brought a group of wonderful people from the Oklahoma Innovators Institute. Is that right? Innovation Institute. Oklahoma Innovation Institute. George Louthan, Chase Curtis, Leanna Smeen, Layla Mortada, Ryan Quinn, Tyler Woodall, and John Mosier. Robert Babcock has a guest today from, she signed in twice, I think. Yeah. From the Day Center for the Homeless, Monica Martin. There they are. Okay. Also, Robert Babcock has brought from the Zarro Families Foundation, Bill Major. Tom Klenda has brought his wife, Carol. Paul Cornell has brought from Premier Consulting, T.W. Shannon. David Wagner has two guests today from STF. I think that's Schnocky Turnbow Frank, isn't it? Rachel Anderson and Angie Walters. There you are. Was that right? Was it Schnocky Turnbow Frank? Okay. Jeff Hassel, his guest today is Joel Matson from Prosperity Bank. I couldn't find him either. I don't know where they're at. Okay. Del Dreyer's guest today from BOK is Stacy Curtis. Kirby Crow's guest from Parkside is Deborah James. Richard Holmes brought his friend and neighbor, John Sacra. Welcome, John. Jeffrey Alderman has brought Jeff Alderman. Is that like a son? No. You're down twice. It's from the TU College of Health and Sciences. And also the guest of Dr. Clancy is from the TU College of Health and Sciences, Beatrice Perez. Karen Keith has a guest today, Brian Pascal from the Education Foundation of TPS. Let's have a big hand for our guests today. And we have one visiting Rotarian, the world-famous Mickey Moore from the home club of Bristow, our premier driller. Hey, Mickey.
Thank you, Jerry. You know, the role of Rotary Club of Tulsa is to connect leaders, to exchange ideas, and to take action. And to echo the words of Jerry earlier, we have a unique opportunity in the community of Tulsa to engage in our law enforcement. We already do that through Above and Beyond awards. We do that with Shop with a Cop. And there are other projects that we should probably look at and embrace to really bring this community together from birth through high school, teaching our children, our most precious commodity, that it is a safe community to learn and a safe place to live, and these are the good guys. So I appreciate those words. Upcoming sneak at our programs on July the 20th, we have Marcia McLeod and Greg Arand going to talk to us about diversity and inclusion in business. On July the 27th, we have Mark Graham, one of our own members from Tulsa United Way, but he's going to really talk to us about the impacts and needs on bringing nonprofits together in Tulsa. And as a side note, also on the 27th, Bob McKenzie is going to give us a mini program on the Ram Ride to raise money for polio, sorry. On August the 3rd, we have Daniel Regan. He's this year's chair for Typros, and he'll be our speaker. Our sponsors today are Richard Properties, Bill Rickert, and Final Touch Cleaning, Sandra Mullins. If we could give them a hand. Thank you both for your service, and I know your heart is here for Rotary as well as helping out with our funding. Our committee meeting today, we have one is Club Foundation Grants, and it's in room 232. Some announcements today. Bravo, or kudos, to the Rotary Plaza maintenance crew. They braved the heat at 8 o'clock Saturday morning and cleaned up the dust and the residue from our statuette and our memorial. Did you actually polish a little bronze there? So we've refurbished that whole area. You should go by and take a look at it. Remember, today is our first Rotary on the Road event. It is today, so to learn firsthand about one of the fastest growing companies in Tulsa, Consumer Affairs. There are slips on your table as a reminder, and it has the address. It's in the Petroleum Club building. They have valet parking underneath, right off of Boulder. Starts at 4:30, be there on time, runs till 6 o'clock. Word reached us this week through the office that Norm Simon is in the hospital, but he's recuperating from a planned hip replacement, so we wish Norm a speedy recovery. It's now my pleasure to ask Scott Philstrup to come forward with the first new member of this Rotary year, Greg Weber. I want to thank Lou Ann Buehlinger for doing the new member orientation this morning. Scott?
Thank you. It's an honor and pleasure to welcome back to Tulsa Rotary Greg Weber. Greg is the CEO of Tulsa Opera, and he's hit the ground running and is implementing a strategic plan to grow Tulsa Opera, make it more connected, and create a greater impact on education and the whole community of Tulsa. So it's a great pleasure to welcome back Greg and Marge to Tulsa and I present the four-way test, his badge, and welcome them back.
Thank you, Scott.
There you go. Thank you.
Good to see you too. Thank you. Congratulations, Greg, and again, welcome back to Tulsa and to the Rotary Club of Tulsa. I have a fond memory of Greg. His first go-around with the opera, he was very instrumental and supportive in helping us pull off with Celia Clinton the Night at the Opera event, and I really do appreciate it. Welcome back. I know you'll be a great Rotarian. So this year we're going to do things a little bit different, and we're going to alter the meeting format a bit. So hang on to your hats, bear with us, and stay on your toes. So with that, I'm going to introduce our Rotarian of the day, Susan Neal. Susan is a Vice President of Public Affairs, Research, and Economic Development of the University of Tulsa. And if that's not enough, she's also the Chief Operations Officer of Gilcrease Museum. She joined our club on August of 2015 as part of our Class 1. Susan was led to Rotary to be around others who, like her, are very passionate about Tulsa, her home. Please help me welcome Rotarian of the Day, Susan Neal.
Thank you, John, and congratulations on your chairmanship. It's an honor to be with you all, but it is a true honor to get to introduce Dr. Gerard Clancy, who will soon be installed as the 20th president of the University of Tulsa. Thank you. This might require glasses. Currently, though, Dr. Clancy is Vice President for Health Affairs, Dean of the College of Health Sciences, and holds the Thomas Oxley Endowed Chair in Community Medicine at the University of Tulsa. His road to these positions is punctuated with many academic achievements and honors. After graduating from the University of Iowa in biochemistry, he was the American Heart Association Research Fellow and received his medical degree with Alpha Omega Alpha honors in 1988. He continued with his psychiatry residency and chief resident training at Iowa through the early 90s until he joined us here in Tulsa as Dean of the College of Medicine at OU Tulsa. And then in 2006, he was asked to take on an additional responsibility, very small little job, president of OU Tulsa, which he did with great flair, until we were able to steal him away. But even with these many responsibilities and the many hats that Jerry has worn throughout his career, up until just a few weeks ago, he truly is a doctor's doctor, and he's been treating patients throughout his entire career, which is quite something given his schedule. A little over a year ago, Jerry, as we all know him, joined the University of Tulsa, and in this brief time, founded TU School of Health Sciences just across the street at 12th and Boulder. Even in its infancy, this institution is already making a positive impact on Tulsa's health landscape. His areas of expertise are many. They include everything from mental illness, transformation of healthcare delivery systems, and transformation of training for healthcare professionals, as well as economic development areas that involve attracting and retaining talent for our region. For those of us who know Jerry well, we know that he is a visionary leader for our city and our state, but his thought leadership always results in action. And it's delivered with inclusion and a sense of humor, which we all really appreciate, in bringing big visionary ideas into reality. Whether it's chairing the United Way, the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, or bringing a health sciences school up out of the ground in less than a year, his leadership inspires change for the better for so many, and you'll hear about that in his presentation. Those are all things I would have said about Gerry Clancy before I knew he was going to become my boss. But knowing that he is going to become my boss, maybe I should step up my game a little. So I would ask you all to join me in welcoming the greatest doctor in the entire planet, Dr. Gerard Clancy. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Oh, I forgot my Thank you, Susan. That was very kind, and your raise will be coming soon. So. It really is a pleasure to be back with you again. I think I've spoken here. This is probably my 5th time speaking to you. I've given you updates on the health status of Tulsa for several years, and you have been so helpful to us in helping start Bedlam Clinic, which is now approaching its 14th year, and thank you very much for the start of that. Yeah, well done. TU is now your neighbor, and if you haven't noticed at night, we have put up the brightest LED lights on the skyline of our building, and soon you will see the biggest University of Tulsa sign on that building in the future very soon as well. So we want you to know our presence is here. It really is a great time to be in Tulsa. I'm very excited about the next 10 years. We have Vision 2025 has passed, Gathering Place is coming. It's wonderful working with STED and following such a great tenure and extraordinary accomplishments of President Upham. And I'm going to talk to you today about some actually very positive news as far as our health. And then I'm going to give you some grim numbers, and then I'm going to talk about how being honest about those numbers actually puts us in a great position for the future of making some additional improvements in health. So I'm going to give you a little background and show you a lot of maps as far as what we're doing. So we live in a world nowadays where you can compare pretty much everything. And you can compare the health of cities now using big data. And this came out in 2012, where the 306 largest cities in America were compared as far as health status. And up in that top group, you can't read them all, the top group is St. Paul, Minnesota, is number 1. Dubuque, Iowa, for some reason. I've been to Dubuque. I've been to St. Paul. Bratwurst cheese and beer is what it's all about out there, and ice fishing, but they are healthier than the rest of the country. I'm from Iowa City, Iowa. It's number 20 out of 306. But then you go to the bottom 30 or so, and that's that group down below. Tulsa comes in at 281 of 306 cities. Lawton comes in at 286, and Oklahoma City comes in at 298. So does anybody see any positive in those numbers? Yes, we kicked Oklahoma City's butt on that. Oklahoma, there's a big billboard in Oklahoma City on I-35 that says, Oklahoma City is alive and well. It's advertising for one of the hospitals, and I go, not really, not really. But those are pretty daunting numbers. You would think to yourself, how in the world do you improve the health of an entire city? Well, you got to dig down a little bit deeper. Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and Virginia Commonwealth University have taken this to look at city after city and start dissecting what parts of that city, what neighborhoods are unhealthy, because not everybody in Tulsa is unhealthy. Not everybody in New York City is unhealthy. And what they found is great variations by neighborhood, but great variations by city as well. In New York City, about a 3-mile difference between Midtown and Harlem, you have a 9-year difference in life expectancy. Just down the road in Richmond, Virginia, about a 3-mile difference, you have a 20-year difference in life expectancy, one neighborhood from another neighborhood. In New Orleans, it's a 25-year difference. And in Ferguson, compare Ferguson, Missouri to the western suburbs of St. Louis, it's a 35-year difference in life expectancy. It is extraordinary how health can vary by city by city. And this is really work done in 2013, 2014 by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. Well, I'm happy to report that we were way ahead of the famous Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We were doing this work back in 2005. And in fact, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation came to us in about 2010 and said, how did you do it? And we taught them how to do it, and now they're doing it all over the country. But this is where we got the famous numbers of that there's a 14-year difference in life expectancy between North Tulsa and South Tulsa. And you've heard me talk about that before. And in North Tulsa, the drivers of that shorter life expectancy were cancer and cardiovascular disease. There was a woeful shortage of clinicians. 4% of the physicians in Tulsa region were in North Tulsa, but they had 40% of the population. So you've heard those numbers before. The very positive thing that we are just rolling out to Tulsa and rolling out to the country is, with a 10-year plan from the Lewin study, we pulled everybody together, public and private, nonprofits and universities, philanthropy, everybody working together. We put together a 10-year plan to let's address this 14-year difference in life expectancy. You see a blue box up there. In North Tulsa, when we started in 2005, the life expectancy in North Tulsa was 67 years old. In 2015, that has improved to 70 years old. That's a 3-year improvement in life expectancy in North Tulsa in less than a 10-year time period. It's extraordinary. So how did we do that? We did that with 4 new clinics, 37 more doctors, and a whole host of programs. And this happened at a time when South Tulsa's health did not improve at all, and it happened at a time when poverty in North Tulsa actually worsened. The take-home point here is that you actually can improve things. Big, huge, daunting statistics like this, you actually can improve things. What's also impressive about Tulsa, and it's a story that needs to be told, is that Tulsa actually is the only city to date so far that has been able to do a life expectancy turnaround like this. No other city has been able to do it. It's extraordinary if you think about how we all pulled together to do that. Well, that was inspiration in working with the Ann and Henry Zero Foundation to say, what's next? And so I'd like to go over the Tulsa plan. And this is what we're going to be working on between 2016 and 2026. It really is a community-wide assessment and bringing together a community-wide plan to address the mental illness issues in our region and how do we improve upon those things. It's funded by the Ann and Henry Zero Foundation. It will be coordinated by the University of Tulsa, and Beatrice Perez and Jeff Alderman are here. They are our coordinators of this program. We have a fabulous leadership council that includes the Zero Foundation, the Oxley Foundation, the Warren Foundation, and the Kaiser Foundation. We have OU, OSU, and TU all working together. We've got fabulous nonprofits of Family and Children's, Mental Health Association, Community Service Council. We've got the business community involved with Jeff Dunn from the Chamber of Commerce, and we have the State Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services all together on the same page on this. As we go forward, we are going to tap into every database we possibly can. What can the jail tell us? What can the police department tell us? What can the fire department tell us? What can the emergency rooms tell us? What can the insurance companies tell us? We will also talk to thought leaders, and we will also talk to stakeholders, family members, and members with mental illness. We're already learning some things in this study, and we've just started just a few months ago. And I'm going to go over some of the things that we're learning. One of the things we're learning is that, unfortunately, things are getting worse rather than better in the United States in the mental health and substance abuse area. What you see on the left is a curve of mortality, and this is the opposite of life expectancy, so it's death rates, and you'd like that number to be as low as possible. You see across the world, across the United States, death rates are improving. They're going down, except for one segment of our population, and that's 45 to 54-year-old white men. And those death rates are worsening dramatically, and they're worsening dramatically by suicide, by liver failure, and by drug and alcohol abuse. So that tells us that there's a lot of work to do in this area for some reason. I just turned 55, so I'm happy to be out of this zone now. We're also learning that we've got a long way to go as far as still educating people on the biologic basis of these mental disorders. They are brain illnesses. All of us would know that if a woman had breast cancer, that she really didn't do anything to cause that breast cancer. And we know nowadays that there's a genetic vulnerability to get breast cancer with the BRCA1 and 2 genes. If you have that BRCA gene, you have an 80% chance of getting breast cancer sooner or later, so we watch you very, very carefully. Well, what people don't understand is that if you have an identical twin with schizophrenia, you have an 80% chance of getting schizophrenia. And that's even twins raised in different environments that were adopted to different families. Same thing happens with bipolar disorder, 80% chance between identical twins. So there's something that is genetically passed on that that person never did to themselves to bring on schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. In fact, I have never seen a patient or a family that helped produce schizophrenia. I have never seen anybody who helped themselves get manic depressive illness or bipolar disorder. These are entirely random illnesses with some genetic variability to it. But that story doesn't get out there. We treat mental illness differently than we treat cancer in this country, and that's got to end. Another example of this is our ability to understand the brain in action, and this is through functional MRI. The Laureate Institute of Brain Research here in Tulsa is fabulous at this. They can look at different brain images, looking at the brain in action, and see different characteristic patterns. Your scan on the left, that is a brain cross-section with left ear and right ear on the left and right. The bottom of the brain, or the back of the brain at the bottom of the picture, and your nose would be up at the top of the picture. And this is 5 different brains. The one on the left is a traditional scan of someone at rest who does not have mental illness. The next one over is someone with clinical depression. And you see that that person has one part of the brain, that right part of the brain, not near as active as the left part of the brain. The next one over is bipolar affective disorder. In that one, the right part of the brain is much more active, much more colorful. The fourth one over is schizophrenia. And in schizophrenia, the front part of the brain is much less active than the back part of the brain. And in individuals with schizophrenia, the front part of the brain is for thought processing, decision-making, what we call executive functions. It's also where our personality is. And many people with schizophrenia kind of lose their ability to make quick decisions. They lose their ability to be motivated. They lose some of their personality. And it's because that front part of the brain is not functioning properly. And then the last one is obsessive compulsive disorder. And there, the brain is in overdrive in the front part of the brain. The front part of the brain is thinking too much and obsessing about a particular thought. So this all shows that these different brain patterns the different illnesses have different brain patterns. It's very biologically driven. But that story is not being told. And until we tell that story well and people believe it, funding and policy will not follow. So that'll be part of our plan as we go forward. Lastly, not lastly, but we're also learning that Oklahoma is really struggling as far as where it ranks as far as mental illness. We are number 50 out of 50 in mental illness burden. We are very low in how much we spend on mental health care. We are very low on access to mental health services. We have 22% of our population with a mental illness, 985,000 people in this state with a mental illness, but we do not have the infrastructure for this. What we're seeing is that our hospitals, our mental health hospitals, are busy all the time and at capacity because the rest of our infrastructure is not there for them. The outpatient services, the substance abuse services, the early intervention services are not there, so everything gets pushed to the hospitals. I get called on a very regular basis, can you help me get somebody into the hospital during this emergency? And it takes a lot of work. On average, it takes me about 3 or 4 hours to get somebody admitted to a psychiatric hospital as we are looking for beds somewhere. It really is a crisis. We have a problem with suicide in Oklahoma as well. The number of suicide deaths per 100,000 in the nation is about 12, but Oklahoma is at 17. We are 13th in the country as far as suicide. That's 731 suicide deaths per year in Oklahoma. In Tulsa, it's a little bit lower than the state average, but we are the 15th highest rate of suicide in the entire country. So we've got work to do there as well. Your greatest predictor of suicide is clinical depression, and your greatest intervention for suicide is treating clinical depression. But if we have a mental health system that is so overwhelmed, people with depression can't get treated, and therefore they become much more at risk for suicide. We also have started to tease out what parts of Tulsa have what particular health problems. So that first map I showed you of Tulsa County showed that the zip codes 74126 and 74106, North Tulsa, were struggling with cardiovascular disease and cancer disease, and therefore that's why their life expectancy was 11 years different than the rest of the county. We see that same thing at 61st and Peoria. So cardiovascular disease and cancer is there in those red dots. But we have a different problem in Midtown. In Midtown, and that's the green dot, that's opioid drug overdose deaths between Riverside and Harvard, 31st and 51st. Purely Midtown Tulsa has a issue with opioid drug overdoses. And that's a part of town where almost everybody is insured. There is plenty of access to health care, and it's a great example of what oversupply of health care looks like. And then lastly, in the purple dots, what we've been able to see is where are the hot spots for suicide. And the hot spots for suicide are downtown. They are just north of LaFortune Park, between I-44 and LaFortune Park. And if you think back there, that's a pretty densely populated group of apartments. And then for some reason, there's a hot spot in northeast part of Tulsa County as well for suicide. What this leads us to do is we're going to do different interventions for different problems depending on what are the hot spots for those particular diseases, really starting to tease out what are the neighborhood issues as far as health in Tulsa County. We also have a problem with psychiatrist supply. Nationally, there's about 1 psychiatrist for every 6,000 people. In Oklahoma, it's 1 psychiatrist for 14,000 people. We would need to graduate all at once 321 new psychiatrists to be able to get to the national average of psychiatrists. What that tells us in our plan is that we have to do something other than just think about psychiatrists as solving the problem. How are we going to do this as far as we go forward, because we know these are the problems. So in thinking about the future, we have to think differently. And this is one of my hopes as we come to the end of this planning process, and that is maybe we could have a 211 center like we have right now that is specific for mental health and substance abuse, that you could call in. Psychiatric nurses could help guide people to the right places rather than trying to call me on Friday afternoon saying, can you get me a bed? Because I don't know what's out there. But if you had a call center that was able to guide people to the right places, maybe that could help get people to where they need to get to much quicker. We also know that we need to think differently about funding. We need to fund mental disorders like we fund other brain disorders, like we fund Parkinson's, like we fund a stroke, like we fund ALS. We know that we need to tailor our care to the neighborhoods, and I just showed you that. We will probably need to move to some type of team care and relying on primary care physicians helping us with the mental health load that we have. And already you might be seeing that there are behavioral specialists being staffed in many of our primary care clinics in the Tulsa area through a special project of Dan Duffy's, and it's working extraordinarily well. I had an employee come up to me, and I went to my doctor, and there's this behavioral health specialist there, and they asked me if I needed any help, and I said no, but I thought it was great that they were there. So you're already seeing it. We're also knowing that texting is becoming a much efficient way of helping guide patients to stay healthy. We could do Facebook, we could do tweets, but it's texting that seems to be the best way to interact with people as far as ongoing care. And lastly, we're going to need to learn a whole lot more from those data pools, from those thought leaders, and as we talk with our stakeholders in going forward. So hopefully I've been able to paint a picture of Tulsa is extraordinary as far as being able to take on really difficult problems, because we've done it. We're the only city that have turned around their health disparities to some degree. We're being honest about our data, and we're starting to pull together the next phase of the plan. And I'm actually very hopeful of where we're going, because we're being honest about that data and using that data to drive us in the future. So, as usual, I've tried to leave a little bit of time for questions. This is when we call it Stump the Psychiatrist, and it doesn't take very long to stump me. So, yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll let Sheriff Regalado also comment on this, but the panhandlers are a complex group. I think is the best way to describe it. There are professional panhandlers here. We know that, and you've seen Channel 2 Works for You follow them around, and they get out of their car, they put on their outfit, and do that. On the other stance we have bona fide, very seriously mentally ill individuals on the streets who are mentally ill as well. And so I always tell our medical students, the homeless are a very heterogeneous, complex group. One size does not fit all here. Tulsa is an incredibly generous town, and the panhandlers know that. And so there is somewhat of a, if you build it, they will come. If you give services to others, if you are a charitable community, they will come, and they know that. They know it. Good question. Yes, Carrie.
You know, our jail is becoming de facto mental health bed, supply of beds for those who get picked up. It's very difficult for the sheriff and for the staff, and we're building pods to accommodate that. It is not ideal in any way, shape, or form, but it's something that we're trying to do. Do you have any suggestions for us?
Sure. So Tulsa's not the only region that is struggling with the correction systems being used as a de facto mental health hospital and mental health institute. It's happened all over the country. And it really, this problem started in the 60s. We had the mental health institutes closed down. We were supposed to develop a network of community mental health centers, and that network of community mental health centers never developed the strength that it needed to take care of everybody in the outpatient setting. The first wave that we saw is a huge number of mentally ill that were in those institutions not go to those mental health centers, and we had a huge uptick in homeless mentally ill. And that problem has continued since the mid-60s. So this is a chronic problem. Housing is really important starting place, and we believe that if you can get people housed, then you can bring the rest of the services to them. So, and the Zero Foundation, Mental Health Association, Day Center for the Homeless have done fabulous work, and Tulsa is a model city that people come from across the country to see how we do housing. We've done a great job. There is the drug court, the veterans court, the mental health courts as an alternative to get people to treatment rather than to jail. But those courts are pretty tapped out. I mean, what I hear from all those that staff it is if we could grow the size of those programs and have services to get people to, it would work better. Women in Recovery is a great example of success in that, but it's small compared to the need that's out there. So there's multiple solutions to it. I know that the Sheriff's Department and Mental Health Association working very closely, also with the police department, on teams that are well-trained to be able to intervene, that mental health specialists and law enforcement officers working together as teams. So we're making progress, but part of the problem started way back in the 60s. Yes. Yeah, a great question about prescribing of narcotics. We have a problem in America. We have a problem in Oklahoma. We have a problem in Tulsa with physicians prescribing narcotics. And it becomes a gateway to addiction to OxyContin, which then becomes a gateway to an addiction to heroin. And, 10 years ago, we did not have this problem with heroin that we have across the country. It really starts with the physicians needing to be tough on, I'm only going to give you so much prescription for your for your pain, and then you need to move on. You need to move on to Tylenol. You need to move on to physical therapy. And we've got to have a tougher line. We teach this very intently in medical school, but it's just not translating into practice like we would want it to. We've got a new system where monitoring of all narcotics happens at the state level, and for me to prescribe a narcotic, I have to check the database, and that seems to be having some impact on at least everybody seeing what's happening rather than doctor shopping. But it's a tough problem out there. It really is, and we've got to change the culture of the physicians around prescribing as well. Yeah, I mean, I had my sinus surgery, I got 30 Lortabs prescribed to me. I took 2, and yeah. It is. Well, I'd love to be in a position where we at least can balance our war on drug supply with much better attention to the war on the demand. Why do people use drugs? We know with chronic pain that there's a pathway from being prescribed a narcotic to then getting hooked on a narcotic. And some people have an incredibly good feeling when they take one of these narcotics, and it's very hard to turn away. I also know that 50% of people who are struggling with substance abuse issues have an underlying mental illness. And if we can treat that mental illness with true psychiatric treatment rather than self-medicating with other drugs, that helps a lot. I see my patients at Tisdale Clinic in North Tulsa. Methamphetamine is very normal in North Tulsa, and it is normally used as a surrogate for treating depression. And if I have a patient who can't get to me or who doesn't get to me or comes into me for the first time, I say, have you been using any illicit drugs? And they say, yep, I've been using meth to treat my depression. So if we can treat those things underneath, that helps as well. Great question. How are we doing time-wise? We're good? Okay, great. Yes, Jerry.
Could you be transparent about your own personal life way back when you were going to school and you were riding a bicycle?
Yeah.
What was going on that has become such a part of why you're doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. Jerry wanted me to kind of talk a little bit about how I got here. And I think we all have these snapshots in our life. I like to call them almost a storyboard of our life, where we have particular scenes in our life that actually are very, very determining of what you do for the next 5 or 6 years. And I tell our med students to draw a picture of the important scenes in your life, and that's the start of your storyboard. For me, it was when I was in medical school, and the first big scene was when I started to see the innocence of mental illness, that this person didn't do anything to themselves to have this terrible depression, this terrible psychosis. And that really got to me, and I thought to myself, the rest of the world doesn't really understand that there's an innocence to mental illness, and I'd like to be one of those people that actually turns that around. So that was the start of me going into psychiatry. I was going down the pathway of being a cardiologist. I had done a whole bunch of laboratory work in the cardiology research labs. I told my cardiology research professor I was going to be a psychiatrist, and his first comment to me was, what a waste. And I said, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take this and run with it. And I think I kind of showed him. The second time was when I was at a community meeting. I was a young professor now, and I was asked to represent the University of Iowa Hospital at a meeting about the homeless. And I just kind of stumbled in there and was ready to go to sleep in the back of the room. And I was working at a 1,000-bed hospital, pristine, beautiful university hospital, run very well. And afterwards, a social worker that staffed the homeless shelter came up to me and just started yelling at me about how my hospital wasn't doing its duty, that she had a homeless shelter full of individuals with untreated mental illness, and she couldn't get them any treatment. She'd bring them to the hospital, and we wouldn't do what needed to happen. I felt so bad about that same day on my way home from work, I stopped into that homeless shelter. And as a trained psychiatrist, you become seasoned. You have an eye for mental illness within about 30 seconds of seeing somebody. And I saw a homeless shelter full of people with untreated mental illness. And I thought to myself, it's time to do something different. And that's where I said, I'm not going to work in the hospitals anymore. I'm going to work in the community. We developed a number of programs that we would go and see the homeless. I'd bring my med students with me. It was a typical university town, so there was nowhere to park. So we rode our bikes. The newspaper picked up on it and called us Sykes on Bikes. I got brought down to the police station once. I was in the pedestrian mall working with a homeless individual. I had a backpack full of drugs, and a police officer came up behind me and said, "You're going to need to come with me," and put me in the back of the police car. And I said, "But I'm a doctor." And he said, "Yeah, right." And I had a bike and shorts and a backpack full of drugs. I did not look like a doctor. And so I had to talk to he didn't put me on that side of the police station. He said, "We're going to have you talk to the chief." So I remember sitting down with Chief R.J. Winklehockey and trying to explain myself. And I knew I was in trouble when he said, "Okay, I'm going to give you a phone call." And I said, that's not the line I wanted to hear. I didn't call my wife. I called my boss and said, "Get me out of here," and it worked. So that actually was the start of a great relationship with our police department, where they would call us and say, "We see somebody who is heading down, and we'd like you to start picking up your mobile outreach services with them." And so, was that the story you wanted? Okay, good, Jerry. Good. How we doing? We good? All right, wonderful. It's a pleasure talking.
Well, thank you, Dr. Clancy. It's been a pleasure to have you associated with the club over these years. And on a personal level, I'm very excited that you're taking over the reins for University of Tulsa. I'm an alum there, but more importantly, I have a daughter starting there this fall, and I know that she's in great hands. So thank you very much.
And we appreciate the tuition as well.
Oh, okay. Well, I got some bad news in that area. She got a full ride. Susan and I can share that story later. There's a book in recognition of your speech today, and did you have a chance to, I'll get you to sign this. It's Somewhere There Is Still a Sun. And we give that book to Celia Clinton Elementary in your honor and the Rotary Club of Tulsa for your speech today. Thank you very much. So now, Sarge, are you ready for this? So you really don't know what's coming, do you?
Well, you know.
No, like right now.
No.
Okay.
But did you notice that they didn't give me a clicker and they didn't give me a microphone? So I think Miguel has me on baby steps.
Well, I got you on a short leash right now. By the way, you look very nice today.
Thank you. Bill Selman, where did he go? He's not here. He's going to be my coach. He's going to be my outfit coach, I think. So, he told me earlier that one person used to dress up in a uniform as a sergeant of arms. Another guy only had one arm, so he was the sergeant at arm. Now, I'm not willing to get rid of an arm for this job. I'm just going to throw that out there right now. But we'll see how that goes.
Okay, we'll work on that.
That's right. So are we ready? All right, let's do this thing. Sarge time. So the first thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about where do the fines go. And for some of you, you're thinking, okay, what's a fine? A fine is a donation. And so for the Rotary Club Foundation, it goes for our water well projects, Camp Enterprise, Yearling Project, Shop with the Cops, Celia Clinton, Partners in Education, Rotary Youth Exchange, Above and Beyond Awards, and grants for our local nonprofits. So your money is really being used well when you give a fine or a donation. So for our first donation today, Bob Lineker, I just want to say, feel free to follow his lead. Last week, he walked up and shoved a handful of cash in my hand. I'm okay with that. So he donated $100 for his lovely wife, Mary Carolyn's 87th birthday. Her birthday was on July 5th. So another person, feel free to follow that person's lead, has donated $750 to the Rotary Club Foundation as an anonymous gift. So thank you very much.
Wow.
Mickey, our driller, Mickey Moore. Mickey is celebrating, or has celebrated one of his 70th birthday. So he donated $70, and he said he's very happy to have another year with his Cadillac body on a Toyota frame. Mickey, go ahead and stand up. For those who don't know you, you've got to see this. There he is. Happy birthday. And Mickey also sold 4 more Centennial books. Please know that we still have Centennial books for sale if you're interested. And then our former Sarge, is she here today? I haven't seen her, but she's probably never going to sit at the front again. She had a birthday on the 10th and donated $100 for our 100, and so happy birthday to Sarge. Michelle Place caught me last week and gave me $100 for Robert Spears. Robert, where are you sitting? I know he's here. There he is. A happy birthday. His 90th birthday. I heard that there was a big party this weekend, and so from Michelle, Dale Adcock, Michelle's mother, and cousin BJ Treadway, and then he walked in today and gave me a big check for $180 to celebrate his birthday. And I said, well, we already have a slide, so let's just tag it on. So happy birthday, and thank you, Bob. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, and then I am paying a fine of $100 for the Oklahoma Innovation Institute, the company where I work. We were in the news last Wednesday. And also, Liana Amin, my coworker, her birthday was last week. And then Dr. Clancy, who is on our board, and then Susan Neal, of course, is part of OII. So happy to represent them there. So I'm paying that fine. And next week, so everybody knows about the 50-50 game that we're going to start playing to raise money for Rotary International. So Rotary International is doing great things, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what they're doing next week. But next week, Barney will be selling tickets. We have to go back to that slide, guys, because I've got to show you something. So we're going to be drawing cards every week. You'll buy tickets from Barney. Barney or somebody representing Barney will be out front. You'll buy tickets for $1 a ticket.
We're working on some flexible options there.
Okay,
but
all right.
yes.
Daryl, just go check out Barney next week. And then every week we'll draw a card, and if you have the joker, you get to split the pot with the Rotary International Foundation. Now, I was putting this slide together, and I thought, well, I'm going to put a picture of Barney up there so that you can see, who's going to be manning the desk. And then I put the picture of the joker, and then I looked at Barney, and then I looked at the joker, and then I looked at Barney. But I'm not going anywhere with that. I just wanted to just point out that, so.
You will
anyway.
keep Barney honest, right?
Yeah, and Barney's not here, so I could feel free to say that. And let's not encourage him to watch the video, okay?
Now, you noticed I got you pink raffle tickets.
Aren't those nice?
They are nice.
All right, so everybody bring lots of dollars next week so that you can be in on this. Here's what the card looks like. This is the card you're going for, so if anybody wants to come over and, magically do whatever to make it your lucky card, that's fine. Okay, and that's all I have this week.
Catherine, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're looking forward to a great year of talking about the works of our two foundations and raising a little money and fun. I hope the card game goes over, and I do promise you I will keep Barney honest. He's a real joker, and we have a lot of fun with him, but he'll be out front next week at a table. Tickets are $1 a piece, buy all you want. He's toying with some ideas to where nobody carries money anymore, right? I mean, I don't have $1 on me. So he's going to take credit card, and we'll try to figure that out. But he's going to advance sell tickets, and kind of like a Sarge card, he'll give you a ticket a week if you're interested in that. So we're looking forward to that. We kind of shook up the meeting a little bit. I hope you enjoyed that. We'll have the Sarge at the end, along with the drawing at the end each week, so it'll give you something to look forward to. And of course, Dr. Clancy was a great speaker, and we'll have great speakers each week. We sure did enjoy you today. And again, remember our upcoming programs. July the 20th on diversity and inclusion. The 27th is Mark Graham and our own Bob McKenzie. And on August the 3rd is Daniel Regan. So as you leave today, we got word that Baylin actually arrived and landed wheels down in Spain this morning. So everything's good there. She's back reunited with her family. And in honor of that, we kind of put together a video that we're going to play as you walk out. So if you want to stand and enjoy it, that's fine as you chat. But it's to honor this wonderful experience that we had with Baylin. So again, thank you for being here. Remember that Tulsa is the greatest place to live, and this is the greatest club to be in. We're adjourned.